Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading update for the weekend of April 13th to 14th, 2019. I know I'm fudging things a little bit because I'm filming this on Monday night and it'll be going up on Tuesday, but this is my channel, I can do what I want. Weekend has a nicer ring to it. Basically, this is my update on what I've been reading since my midweek check-in last week. And I'm starting with this book, I Finished A Place for Us by Fatima Farheen Mirza. I chose this as one of the BookTube Prize long listers that I wanted to read, and I really enjoyed this a lot. This is a sprawling family epic about a Muslim American family, and it particularly focuses on the son who's estranged. He as a teenager and an adult, he has issues with substance abuse that kind of gets worse as time goes along, and he also, as a kid, started to sort of feel a little bit alienated from the family in various ways, but not in melodramatic ways. One of the major touchstones of this novel is how the moments Mirza is depicting are just so subtle. And I think in a way, I think it could be difficult to grasp onto and remember the various bits of the novel, especially because we go back and forth in time all the time with Amar, the son, and with his sister Hadia, and then with his mother Layla, and getting all of their perspectives on these small little moments that make up his life and a little bit of the women's lives as well. And it gives a much more nuanced and less soap opera-ish look at the events that could define a family and the individuals within a family. And frankly, I do think a lot of what I read does have more of a hook. It does focus more specifically on specific events in a family's life. And certainly once the substance abuse ratchets up, especially in response to a sort of failed romantic attachment, that's sort of the stuff that I think most books would put all of their meat into. But Mirza's book is much more expansive than that, and we go into Amar's childhood and the things that sort of led him as a person to get to where he was. It also takes into effect family and community mores and how they work for some people and don't work for others. There's just so many things, so many details that I feel like I could really benefit from a reread, and maybe I'd remember the details a little bit better. But what I mostly got out of this book was sort of a wash of family history. And one thing I appreciated near the end of the book, we started to go more chronologically in order, and there'd be callbacks to the events from the beginning of the book, and it just was fascinating because people would remember these small events, these small conversations differently later in life, and that they would define parts of their life. Like Hadia had a little bit of guilt about some of the ways that she was jealous and treated her brother when she was younger and wondered how that affected things later. And Amar would think about that too, with sort of morality issues and sort of the morals that his parents were trying to teach him, and wondering if he had, stained his heart or that sort of thing. So I guess in a way I think this was a more difficult read for me than I thought it would be, because there wasn't as much graspable stuff, and it sort of washed over you in waves of smaller, more nuanced moments back and forth. But I feel like it was a lot more true to the reality of a history of a family. And then the fourth part with the father was a particular gut punch of getting to hear his perspective, and also getting to hear his perspective from more of a future vantage point, because then we get to see how he's changed as an individual, or how he thinks he's changed, because we haven't seen him in his own perspective, but we've seen him through the eyes of his family. But he tells us in ways how he has changed, and it's just really fascinating, and it was just a wonderful and thoughtful book about families and the human condition through the particular lens of this Muslim American family. I love families, can you tell? Next, throughout the weekend, I read a significant portion of the selected poems of Langston Hughes in honor of National Poetry Month. I was talking about reading this in my last update because of National Poetry Month, and because this weekend I was with my parents helping take care of my niece and nephew, and I figured I could dip it in and out of poetry pretty easily. So this is an expansive collection. It takes a few poems from all of his published works. And it's very interesting, but I feel like the poems that work the best for me are the ones about social justice issues, to put it in that parlance. I should say I'm not very well versed in poetry, but just the themes of what he's talking about the African American experience of his day and of the days of slavery and of looking back through time to Africa, that stuff I think had the most emotional resonance for me. Maybe those are the types of themes that would also be explored in prose. I don't know. I mean, there were also just smaller bits of verse, like 2 or 3 lines about a feeling, and that didn't do much for me, but I like the meatier stuff. I also like there's a few poems in here where he takes on the perspective of female characters in certain situations, and I felt like I was surprised at the nuance and the empathy that he gave to those characters. Like here's one called Widow Woman. Oh, that last long ride is a ride everybody must take. Yes, that last long ride is a ride everybody must take. And that final stop is a stop everybody must make. When they put you in the ground and they throw dirt in your face, I say they put you in the ground and they throw dirt in your face. That's one time, pretty papa, you'll sure stay in your place. You was a mighty lover, and you ruled me many years, a mighty lover, baby, 'cause you ruled me many years. If I live to be 1,000, I'll never dry those tears. I don't want nobody else, and don't nobody else want me. I say don't want nobody else, and don't nobody else want me. Yet you can never tell when a woman like me is free. Anyway, I have a handful more poems left in this collection, which I will be finishing by the end of the month. Next, I just started The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. I'm reading this one in the Mirza book in honor of the BookTube Prize, which was started by Robert at Barter Hordes. He started with a long list of 48 books and has various judges around the BookTube community who have been whittling down the prize for literary fiction published last year. And I picked a list of 12 books off of the long list that I wanted to read and do reviews of, so hopefully later this month or later this week even, I hope I can do a review of 3 of the books from the Group B from the Octafinals list, and so that one, the Mirza one and this one are on it. I'm hoping to get through it somewhat quickly. I always have so much to read, but this is a bit of a long one. I'm only a couple chapters in, but so far I'm intrigued. We're going back in time, back and forth in time with this book. There's a storyline in 1985, which so far is narrated by a man called Yale. He is a gay man in a relationship in Chicago and part of the gay community, and of course part of that is attending funerals and that sort of thing for his friends dying of AIDS. And as the story opens, one of his friends, Nico, has recently died of the disease, so his friend group is reeling from that. And also Yale works in fundraising for university arts of some sort. I'm going to get it ironed out as I go, I know. So that's his storyline. And then in more modern day, 2015, we're following a middle-aged woman named Fiona, who actually was Nico's sister. She appears a little bit in 1985. Fiona is traveling to Paris in search of a lost daughter, it seems, and she also still has some ties to the art world. I think that'll bridge the stories together. So I'm hoping for good things. And finally, next on the docket is The Last Watchman of Old Cairo by Michael David Lukas. I've been talking about this book a fair bit recently because in January I put it on my list of Jewish literature published in 2018 that I want to read because it won the National Jewish Book Award for fiction. And more recently it was placed on the Sammy Rohr Prize finalists list, and I recently made a video about that as well. So I will read from the flap. Joseph, a literature student at Berkeley, is the son of a Jewish mother and a Muslim father. One day, a mysterious package arrives on his doorstep, pulling him into a mesmerizing adventure to uncover the tangled history that binds the two sides of his family. For generations, the men of the al-Raqb family have served as watchmen of the storied Ibn Ezra synagogue in Old Cairo, built at the site where the infant Moses was taken from the Nile. Joseph learns of his ancestor Ali, a Muslim orphan who nearly 1,000 years earlier was entrusted as the first watchman of the synagogue, and became enchanted by its legendary, perhaps magical, Ezra scroll. The story of Joseph's family is entwined with that of the British twin sisters Agnes and Margaret, who in 1897 depart their hallowed Cambridge halls on a mission to rescue sacred texts that have begun to disappear from the synagogue. The Last Watchman of Old Cairo is a moving page-turner of a novel from an acclaimed storyteller, Michael David Lukas. This tightly woven, multi-generational tale illuminates the tensions that have torn communities apart and the unlikely forces, potent magic, forbidden love, that boldly attempt to bridge that divide. So yeah, I mean, some of the major things that drew me to this was the setting and the cultures involved. Of course, I love Jewish culture, and I'm also interested to see it interact with a Muslim community. I love intergenerational stories that give an expansive sweep of history, and now I'm getting hints of some sort of magical realism or fantastical elements in this, so that'll be intriguing. I'll have to read it and see. So that about covers it for me now. Hoping that was a somewhat concise video. I think I tend to ramble on and on about my little reviews. I still need to write up an official review for A Place for Us by Fatima, Farheen, Mirza, so this helps to sort of consolidate some thoughts, hopefully. So thank you for indulging me, and I hope your reading weeks are going well so far. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.